All right, Ike. Well, we are joined by one of our favorite guests and member of the Penguin community, if you will, Linus. Linus, when we last left you, your Model T was broken down.
Yeah, it was on the side of the road.
Yeah,
and
somewhere
you guys just drove off.
So for those of you, who haven't listened to the summer breakdown or the Christmas clip show where we reference the summer breakdown, or the probably 25 episodes where we talk about Linus and his collection of vintage wax canvas tents, Linus
I only
Ike,
have 5.
That's any more than 2 is a collection, and any more than 1 is more than basically anyone else I know has. The summer breakdown is all about Ike and Linus driving some super old gear from here in Los Angeles up north, and unfortunately, Linus's 100-year-old car had a mishap on the way up. So, Linus, what's the status? How is the Model T Roadster? Where are you at with that?
What our thought was at the time was that we had a blown head gasket, and whether that's true or not, I guess we don't really know. We had a lot of water in the oil, and we left the car and then finished our trip. And I was in the process of bringing the car home, and a friend of mine who is in Northern California said, "Hey, just bring it here, and we can work on it here." He has a great collection of old Dodge cars and 1911 or 1912 Buick.
12.
And 12. Lots of fun. So we dropped it off there, disassembled it. We brought the head up here along with the rocker shafts. It turned out that the head was kind of warped, kind of actually badly. So we had it milled a little, new exhaust valves, and we made a repair to the stud that the valve cover mounts to, because it actually goes into the water jacket, and it was leaking. And so that's
outstanding design.
That could have potentially been the whole problem. It was just dumping water out of that sort of wallered out hole into the drains, into the engine, where the push rods come out.
5 gallons of water.
5 gallons of water.
It's kind of like having a picture mounted directly through the wall of your home to the outside. So if you remove that screw, water would pour in through the picture hanging hole.
Or just into a pipe in the wall.
Yeah. So that's fine as long as you don't take that nail out of the wall. Everything's fine.
Yeah, unless you want to change the picture. But so let's see. We had about $600 worth of work done on the head. The rocker shafts were badly worn, so those were remade, new bushings. We took that all back down, changed the oil, and we were able to get the car back together and started. My friend who was storing it was kind enough to put a new bushing in the water pump shaft that was worn out, and Ike was kind enough to braze up the mounting ear on the radiator inlet snout that I cracked when we were putting it back together.
You'll have that.
And I can't think of any other issues we had. I forgot an oil filter.
We had one issue, which was we had initially intended to possibly drive it back, finishing mileage on the trip. But once we got all this work done, it decided to snow a lot.
Yes.
And so
we trailered it home.
We had to trailer it home.
The car is back, and incidentally, the day that we got it back or thereafter, it was quite nice. So I drove it around the Springfield here and had a great time. It's, as far as I can tell, completely fixed. So.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear it, Linus. I'm sure the viewers at large, again, Ike's mom, my mom, very concerned as to the condition. Your mom as well.
And maybe the guy I bought the car from.
Yeah, most likely.
He'd like to know.
I
don't think he knows we exist.
Well, you never know. I mean, you never know. We have a niche group of about 13 people that are dedicated to listening to the show. And we also found a forward control Land Rover, a 101, in the Sacramento area that hasn't run in a good 15 years. So I think a future project will be to have you meet us with the Model T there, give Ike and I about 6 hours to get a 15-year still car running again, and then drive it back to
the alternative would be the 88 that I need to pick up in
Yes, you need to. So for those of you that don't know, Linus has agreed to be the caretaker of an 88 that belonged to one of our friends who died and left the car to his son, but his son is only
7 now, I believe.
7.
Yeah.
So he's only 7, and so Linus is the caretaker of that car until he reaches the driving age. And so recently, this young man visited the car. He's very excited about it, but we still have some time left to go. So that car is in storage with yet another friend, and we need to pick that up and possibly drive it back.
But that would make a good trip. That car is probably as close to driving as the 101 is.
Oh, perfect. Well, we'll try to get them both. We'll first pick up the 101 to then go get that.
So speaking of these kinds of trips where, there's a car and maybe it's been languishing and we want to get it driving again, and it's the more extraordinary the circumstances in which it is, maybe the better story it makes. There's a couple in particular that I think are worth mentioning. We recently took a trip to Death Valley, and before we left the pavement, we fueled up, and at the gas station, this gentleman came up to us and was like, I have a Series Land Rover, but I kind of don't have a Series Land Rover. And I was like, is it Schrodinger's Land Rover? What do you mean? And he's like, well, I have this Land Rover, but it's in our family's quarry. Okay. And the quarry is filled with 180 feet of water, and the Land Rover is sitting at the bottom. Apparently, they forgot to get the Land Rover out of the quarry before it got flooded. I don't know how long ago, maybe 30 years ago.
It's fine.
So I was like, let's get it. I obviously
got to get that car.
We have to dive down there, attach the
little
bags
ATF
to it.
in the cylinders, and new battery. It'll start right up.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about a little bit before the show. It's like a question of, do you try to lift bag it out like parts of the Titanic? Do you try to drag it along the bottom with a cable? I don't know.
I think you use the lift bags, and then you just gradually add air until it just starts to float, and then
it starts to float. Yeah.
Yeah. You just
I wasn't there when this story took place, but you retold it to me, and I may be wrong about this, but my favorite part of the story is what you told me is that when you said, let's get it, the guy sort of thought about it for a minute, and he said, yeah, let's get it. As though it never occurred to him before to go get the thing
I don't think it had. I was like, let's just get it.
You gotta think, quarry water, that's going to be very clean. The body is mostly the chassis, the engine maybe, but the body, likely it's still there in...
I'm convinced that it's totally drivable. We just need to get it out of the water.
It might be in like a high spot where there's air trapped. You never know.
It could be.
It might not even be wet.
My God.
So the other one that I want to go get is there's a couple of Series 2A 109s in the Scott base in Antarctica, supposedly. And I want to confirm that they're there, go there, fix them, drive them across Antarctica as you would.
You do.
Let's go get those.
Are they just regular ones with tires?
No, they never came with tires.
I mean, as opposed to tracks.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're just standard Land Rovers. Yeah, we could put tracks on them.
Oh yeah, we'll go to Antarctica, put tracks on those Land Rovers, and head to the South Pole.
It'll be great.
It sounds like a fun afternoon to me. Speaking of a fun afternoon, the reason for Linus's visit, not just to wish him well his recovery from partial eating injuries, is the recent trip that you guys took to Death Valley, heavily documented on both of your Instagrams and a little bit on ours as well. But what inspired you guys to spend your holiday out in Death Valley?
That's a really long answer. I'll try to make it short, I guess, from my point of view. My dad used to go to Death Valley when he was younger. I think he was taken there on like a geologic trip in high school. Incidentally, with a family friend who's still alive, who's turning 94 next month.
He said this was going to be a short story.
Will be going to Death Valley for his 94th birthday. But my dad took me and my cousin, my dad and my uncle took my cousin and myself to Death Valley in 1991. And I grew up going to the desert, and I returned to Death Valley in 2003 for the first time as an adult.
Oh, wow.
And then I have been returning ever since. And generally I go in the wintertime because I can save up my days off and combine them with Christmas, New Year's, and get a solid block of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's traditionally why I have gone to the desert at that time. And in 2009, I started inviting other Land Rover people to go with me. And I think Ike and Jenna joined me for the first time in 2013. Does that sound right, Ike?
Oh my gosh.
He's not listening.
Right. No, I'm just trying to forget. No, actually.
It was the worst trip ever.
I've been in therapy so much to just forget all those trips. No, it's just an amazing place. And there's the diversity of terrain and climate is just really apparent. It's so big, but at the same time, you get to see so much in such a small area. You can see, obviously the desert, and then various types of temperate forest. And, as you go up and down in elevation, you have, snow, you have warm weather, you can have dust storms, sandstorms. You can feel like you're in the Sahara, a jungle, a forest, all in the space of a day.
Death Valley has a lot of water in it for a desert. And you can find grottos of ferns and waterfalls, and they're not that difficult to get to. They're a short climb, a short walk. There's massive structures out there, stamp mills, huge stamp mills, wonderful ruins of cabins and machines. And I've been there a lot of times, and Ike's been there many times, and still we learn about more things right where we've been that we haven't seen every time.
Well, what were some of the remarkable things? I mean, I know a few of the texts that I get along the way. I get to enjoy these trips vicariously via text message most of the time, as my schedule doesn't allow much travel these days. But certainly some interesting things. So let's talk sort of in chronological order. What's the sort of the first remarkable thing that you guys came across?
Probably my broken leaf spring.
Oh yeah, like day 2, right? Remarkable. Like we're almost right away.
That was with it was on the first trail that we did that it broke.
There's usually some carnage on these trips. The roads are very old and mostly not maintained, and so they're hard on the vehicles. And we always have some sort of thing that we have to something happened.
And you guys were driving mostly 2As and 2s, yes?
Yes, we had a 60, a 66, and a 65, nice. I believe. Yeah. All 109s, long wheelbases, 2 wagons, and a 3-door. And, they were all equipped with winches and various accoutrements to make them more suitable for the journey.
Yeah, Max Tracks. Just one was just full of Max Tracks. Yeah,
just a lot of the minis. The mini Max
the
Tracks?
Scale ones for a little RC rock crawler.
Yeah, we just have a bunch of those, and when we get stuck, we just scatter them on the ground,
and it's great. Yeah. It's like gravel. You just sort of
You can just pour them into the rut that your tires stuck in.
Perfect. They come in a bucket. You just dump them in there. Tiny little Max Tracks.
I have been fortunate.
You guys,
what?
What if we bring concrete mix and we pour that into the mud when we get stuck?
And just wait.
Just wait.
And then pretty soon you have a driveway.
I have had pretty good luck in terms of tires in Death Valley. I've never really had a tire failure there, and I've always been relatively fortunate. But this time I was like, I'm replacing all the tires, so I'm guaranteed to not have my old tires had a little bit of wear on them, and they'd seen seen some rocky trails.
We had
some
blowout
chunks
on the highway on our last trip on those.
Well, that was that was in Baja. So I was like, these tires are getting a little older. They've seen a lot of trails. I'm going to replace them all. So I put all brand new tires on the truck, and not 10 miles into our trip, the very first trail, we did a rocky trail, and up to the top, we started getting into the snow, and the snow on the rocks. There was some tire slippages, and somewhere I hit a sharp rock and it just tore the sidewall. We got to the top and Jenna was like, I think I hear something whistling.
It was really a shame. It was
brand new tire.
So did you change out, or did you just put in 900 plugs?
I put in a big pile of plugs.
Yeah.
And so I was just I didn't want to.
It's still there.
It's still there.
And it may be there forever. I mean, there is
a.
I definitely have a tire downstairs that we use to like show people how to plug and sidewall patch and stuff that has like, I don't know. It's mostly made of plugs now. I don't know how much original tire there is. And that thing still has air in it. I guarantee you if I go down there right now, there's still air in it. It's
Do you
amazing.
suppose that it holds less air now than it once did?
Well, yeah, because it is more plug than it is. There's so much plug inside of it now that, it is.
Why don't they just make tires out of plugs?
Why don't they just make the whole plane out of the black box material? Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, I'm glad that despite your mechanical issues right out of the gate, that you still persevered and
the leaf spring was a fun ordeal.
So where did you bring another leaf spring with you?
No,
we didn't. We actually, and I don't know how many of our listeners
conjure a leaf spring out of sticks and things you found in the area.
We have the world's most preeminent Land Rover parts shipping manager here at Pangolin 4x4. He is studied from like a guru on a mountaintop.
Yeah.
And he is so good that we didn't even have to call him. He just knew.
Yeah.
He just knew that we needed it, and
he was already out and laying next to his workstation.
It's amazing.
On the ground.
Wow.
He just bent down and lifted it up and handed it to the UPS man.
And so Jason, he shipped it overnight to us, and it was there in like 3.5 hours. Which is amazing.
I like guessing what parts from Jason are because he will box them in such a way that they are like perfectly formed to the part. Like you can tell, like, oh, this is a steering box because this box is in the shape of a steering box. Like it's origamied in such a way that it's really an art form. I mean,
it's a talent. He's a true talent.
Yeah. But it really did show up in less than 24 hours. From Eugene all the way to Bishop.
Wow.
And we were able to convince a local sort of ATV store to let us ship it there. And we picked it up the next day. And the leaf
It was delivered to you by a tribe of 3 side-by-sides?
Yes. No, we just picked it up at their store there in Bishop. And the leaf spring has 11 leaves in it. And only one was broken. Unfortunately, it was the main leaf.
The most important
the truck
one.
The truck was still drivable.
Right.
And we ended up driving it all the way out into Death Valley to a place that we like to go. And we changed the leaf spring out there where it was, because it was surprisingly, the weather in Bishop was very bad. It was just dumping rain, and obviously didn't want to change the leaf spring there. So we took it into Death Valley, and we waited a day or so, and the weather was clear, and it was quite nice. And we set up a bunch of chairs and drank. Some people drank beers, while some people
changed the leaf spring. Yeah. Well, there's not that much entertainment in the desert, so you take what you can get, I guess.
Yeah, and we learned what something that we should have noticed beforehand, that the leaf springs, at least the front two, are pretty badly worn on that truck. So the other side is in need of replacement as well.
Well, one of the cool things about taking this trip and taking one of the cars in particular that we took was that this is a car that had been on a factory-sponsored expedition in 1960, and it had done a drive from Tierra del Fuego to Alaska.
Cool.
And, it had done some shorter trips and some camping and that sort of thing, but we hadn't really had it out on a bigger expedition until this one. So it was really cool to see that one back out on the trail doing some more rugged roads and remote places.
I just have I have my own Land Rover, obviously, but there's something about the Cambridge truck that I think speaks to all true Land Rover lovers. And that thing had been at Pangolin for some time, and it's not being ignored. It always will start, but it does have a tendency to sit around sometimes, and it needed a trip. And my Land Rover doesn't have a spare fuel tank, and it has semi-floating axles in the back. It doesn't have a winch. Cambridge has
enough space for your girlfriend.
Enough space to hold the dog and the girlfriend. And it has a Salisbury in it. It's got
no less than 5 wax canvas tents. Yeah.
It held all of the tents. Some strapped to the exterior.
Sure.
But it did hold them all.
Yeah.
And it just needed to go. That truck needed to go, and it needs to go on more trips. It did it did wonderfully.
Really
the
well.
leaf spring broke. The ignition switch broke. And it has a slight exhaust leak, but really it
two small fires,
very
and
well.
Unfortunately, a family of rattlesnakes have taken root. But other than that,
I only burned both of my butt cheeks.
That was going to happen regardless.
That was on purpose.
That was on the carpet.
But this truck, no lockers, no traction differentials, old Goodyear G90s, which are kind of cool tires.
Yeah.
It just
no overdrive.
No overdrive. It just crawled up all the hills, all the nasty, gnarly trails, and one of the other fellows that came with us, he's got a 109 with like 2 lockers and overdrive and all these extra optional equipments and brand new fresh tires and all this expedition gear, and that truck just kept up with him just fine. Did everything.
Yeah. That's something we were talking about before the show started, is what makes one Land Rover that's nearly identical to another behave so much differently. And I think an example of that is our Eastern Oregon trip that we did in 2019, where Ike, you had the Dormobile with the BF Goodrich mud terrains on it, and I had my previous 109 Series 1 pickup with those Yokohamas on it. And the Yokohamas are decent tires, but I couldn't even begin to keep up with the Dormobile in the snow. And Ike has a True Track in the front and an open diff in the back, and I had an ARB air locker in the back, and I couldn't keep up at all. I couldn't keep up at all, and I suppose the Dormobile's heavier maybe than a pickup, but tires. After that trip, I got rid of those tires and went to the BF Goodrich mud terrains.
Yeah, I use a company called Tread Right that has essentially a clone of those BF Goodrich patterns.
Do they make them in 750/16?
They do, which is why I get 235/85 R16, which is very, very close enough for the Defender. I don't run them on the series cars though. Close enough on the Defender. Certainly fine on the Defender, and because we run through tires, because everything down here is made of sandpaper, so we run through tires fairly quickly here. So
let's see. That was we broke a leaf spring before we even got into Death Valley.
Yeah, just get that out of the way, right out of the way.
And then let's see.
Then we decided to take the leaf spring and repair it in Death Valley, and so we decided to go in. It was pouring rain into Bishop. We didn't want to replace it in the rain, so we decided we were going to go into the valley that afternoon. And afternoon turned into evening, and rain turned into snow. And as we were traveling in through the pass there, we encountered blizzard conditions. I would say
pretty blizzardy.
Yeah,
and we had a Land Cruiser with us.
Yeah, 100 series
Land Cruiser with us.
Traction control.
He did have essentially street tires, but
all seasons.
All season tires.
Yes. But apparently winter is not one of those seasons.
Not one of those seasons. Yeah, it's not
so,
one of those seasons.
Here we are
twice.
Here we are driving Cambridge with 2 open diffs and old tires.
Yeah.
I didn't even slip. I didn't slip. I just drove over the pass.
Snow's getting deeper. It's probably 20 inches at the top.
Yeah, 18 or 20 inches deep up there.
Yeah.
And there had been cars through previously, so it wasn't like we were driving through fresh snow. But
the snow was coming down. It was snowing inches.
It was snowing heavily. Yeah. I think it probably added 5 inches while we were trying to cross over. But that Land Cruiser couldn't hack it.
Yeah, the Land Cruiser got stuck. The Land Cruiser is the last car in the line. He's in front of the Dormobile. And Land Cruiser radios me and says, I'm stuck. His headlights are getting dimmer off in the distance. And he's like, I'm stuck. So I back up, pull him out, and then he drives a little bit further, radios me again. I'm stuck. We need to put the chains on. So we put the chains on. He's got cable chains. We put the chains on his tires. We're like, oh, that's going to be it. No problem.
That's a huge amount of traction.
Doing well.
Yeah.
And he goes like 100 feet and he radios me again. I'm stuck. So he's got chains, traction control, and a Land Cruiser 4-wheel drive, which is not a terrible vehicle. And the Land Rovers are just driving anywhere, everywhere, no problems. And this guy's completely stuck, and we have
on
to
essentially 100-year-old technology.
I'm driving a truck that's 60 years old.
Yeah.
It's loaded down with all kinds of camping gear. It has 50 horsepower, and here I am towing this car that's 30 years newer at least. And then I realized that I also have my parking brake on.
Yeah. Thankfully, in a series car, the parking brake is more of a suggestion than like a hard rule. It's really, it's there to let it roll down a hill just a little bit slower than it would without.
But the old cars did great. There was plenty of people in newer cars that were really concerned, and we had no concerns about the passes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, what are some of the stuff that you saw besides stuck Land Cruisers and broken leaf springs?
Burros, lots of burros.
Oh yeah,
Linus is inexplicably attracted to the burros.
The burro.
Yeah. I don't know. They look so much like you.
Wait a minute.
I can't tell if you're driving or a burro's driving.
Yeah, they just jump in there. They're so calm-tempered and even-keeled, Yeah, that's great.
And their beards are gray.
That's true.
Well, we had read quite a bit about the Park Service rounding up a lot of the burros and hauling them off. And I was concerned that was going to they were basically going to remove all the burros. They're not indigenous, but they've obviously miners took them there in the late 1800s, and so they've been there ever since. Or the Spanish might have even brought them there.
Could be.
And so they've been there all this time, and they're not indigenous. So the Park Service is like, it's not indigenous. Get rid of it.
Yeah,
what's that? Problem. Suddenly,
they're a problem. Yeah.
Suddenly, they're a problem after being there for hundreds of years. And so, I was like, oh, that's a really characteristic thing about that particular area. And I was concerned that there weren't going to be any burros, but we did see quite a few burros.
Well, as you know, they are deadly because of their venom and speed. You do need to be careful. Yeah.
Very aggressive animals.
Yeah, super aggressive, very fast moving, and they all carry knives, which is something that not a lot of people
realize. If they don't bite you to death, they will definitely turd you to death.
Oh, yeah.
Buried under just a mountain of burrow turds.
Yeah.
So, we saw an amazing variety of climate just in that one day, once we got over the pass, down into the valley, warmed up by 50 degrees at least.
Yeah.
And you're hanging out near the hot springs, and it's just very comfortable. Very comfortable weather.
Just you and some nude Swedish dudes in the hot spring, and sounds like a great time.
There was a couple of those. Yeah.
So you can't avoid that.
The area that we went to is one that we've gone to multiple times previously, and have explored. I don't want to say extensively, but we've tried to see everything there that we've heard about that might be interesting. And even now, after having been going there for more than 10 years, we learned about a couple of new things that we hadn't seen before. And one of them was right next to the road that we've driven many times. And it was just a wash with a junk pile in it that we'd never seen. And, since we drive junk piles, other junk piles are attractive to us.
You can't help it. Yeah.
So we
covered in donkeys, and it was full of junk, and it's irresistible.
Just infested with donkeys.
Amazing.
So, well, these areas that we visit are so remote and rugged, and then you get to some of these places, and then there's like a car from the 40s, and you're like, somebody must have drove it there. How did they get it there?
It's like a Buick straight 8 sedan from 1948. How do you get that out there?
Well, you get it out there, but you can never get it back, I guess. That's the moral of that story.
Yeah.
So we found a great junk pile, and we raided it heavily for nuts and bolts and goodies.
Leaf springs and things, yeah.
And there was a beautiful tailgate there that we all wanted, but what are you going to do with a tailgate stuck in the back of your Land Rover for 2 weeks?
A lot of interesting relics.
Stuff hasn't asked that question.
Yeah. And I think the best thing that we learned about was a cabin that we hadn't seen. And it turned out to be probably one of the more vigorous, difficult hikes that I've ever done to get there.
So you parked the cars and
we parked the cars and hiked to the cabins. And it wasn't a great distance in a straight line. I think 2.4 miles, but it was, 10,000 feet down into a ravine and then 14,000 feet up the other side.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was this mine that was probably in operation in the 20s or 30s. And we had been to this mine. We hadn't seen a few of the adits and so forth. The adits are the horizontal tunnels. Mines are the vertical tunnels.
Shafts.
In case you're not
shafts are vertical.
Shafts. You don't want to fall down the shaft.
No, you don't. No. So we had been to this mine before, and there's quite a few pieces of mining machinery and old car pieces and interesting things to look at. And we had seen that, and we had traveled on beyond, and there was a cableway above the mine, and we had been to that, and it's impressive because it spans a canyon that's like several miles long, and you can thwack the cable with an iron bar, and the noise will propagate across the cable.
And then you firing the Death Star.
Yeah, you hear it dissipate into the distance, and then if you keep listening, you'll hear it come back from the other side.
Do you suppose that's like a 1-inch cable?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a 1 or 1.5 inch cable. Yeah,
it is taut. Like it is just spring loaded and
still. One day that's going to break at the top and cut apart 3 or 4 people's ending.
And you can see where it's been worrying on the rocks over, the decades or 100 years or whatever. And it's just carved a groove in the rock, like several inches deep. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because it's anchored, like 100 yards behind where we stopped on our walk to the end of where the road is. And, but it passes over and next to, some stones that are sort of in the side of the hill. And so it's just been rubbing on those for decades and decades. And you can see where it's shifted. It wore a groove here, and then at some point a storm blew the cable, or it shifted and it moved.
An earthquake moved the mountains that it's attached to slightly.
A little bit, It got out of plumb. Wow.
Apparently, we learned that there is actually something interesting on the other end. But if you look, it just goes off into the distance. It
goes up into the clouds.
You can't even see where it goes.
It's a doorway into Narnia.
Yeah. With binoculars, you can see it sort of go into a canyon in the side of the mountain, but we have no idea what's over there. So we learned that there was, in fact, a cabin there. And we decided to undertake this, and it only took us 5.5 hours, I think, there and back.
It was a rigorous hike, but it was about 5.5 hours, and we didn't quite know the best route or where we were going. I think if we had to undertake it again, we could do it a lot faster and better and easier and and more safely. The descent into the canyon, because you have to descend like 1,000 feet or something and then go back up like 1,300 feet to get up the other side, and it's all loose,
There's
shitty
no trail
rock
at all.
And so you can't like climb down in a row of people, because you'll just kick rocks down onto the person below you. So you have to kind of traverse it, the slope, and it's just super steep, super loose, really unpleasant to hike. And you descend down into this ravine in this canyon, and then ascend similar up the other side. And then we got to the snow line, and all that loose rocky stuff is covered in snow. And then then you're in the clouds. After that, you're at the cloud line, and so you're hiking around, and it's like misty and cold.
It was hard. Yeah, we couldn't see where we had come from. It was so thick. Wow. And we did find the cabin. First of all, the cable terminus on the far end was very unremarkable. The cable just goes into the dirt.
Oh.
And I imagine that it's tied extensively around some kind of rocks that are there.
Right.
It's
underground.
just in the dirt, and it's just rusting there. And
there was a lot of debris, like mining debris. There was like old wheelbarrows and cans and pulley blocks. We found some pulley blocks on the tramway.
And zip-lined back down to avoid the hike back down.
I didn't see an actual mine over there.
There's got to be something.
There's got to be. But if you go to the south of the cable terminus, there's a rough trail. It goes out around the face of the mountain, around the back, and up the backside. And up there at the top in the trees was the cabin. And it was really great.
And
it
haunted.
Was really great.
Cabin was really cool.
It was full of donkeys.
And they all just sort of looked at you when you came in, like they were planning something before you got there, and you'd interrupted them.
The cabin was really cool, and it's a tin cabin with a wood floor, and it's fairly well provisioned for how remote it is. People had visited and left dry goods and canned goods, and some sleeping bags tied to the rafters so that vermin couldn't get in them. And there was a cot and a wood stove and wood,
nice wood stove.
Yeah, really nice wood stove.
And a lot of really great relics, a cast iron, cooking pots, and shovels, and a big pile of Burros shoes.
There was axes and saws and these sorts of things that you might need to sustain yourself for a few days. And then there was fun little things that people had left, like there were first aid kits over the decades. And one of the things in there was this bottle that had a handwritten label, and the label said toothache remedy. Apply with cotton swab, and it tastes like shit, but it works.
Interesting. And after all sampling it, did you then realize it was just ayahuasca?
No, it was shit.
It was a Grady. It was
just shit.
Yeah.
Ike left it there.
I left it there.
That's right.
No, it was really a look back in time. There was some sealed containers with various provisions, and then one of the sealed containers had the logbook for the cabin.
Oh, cool.
And we checked the logbook, and the last entry in the logbook was 2012, so 10 years ago.
And those people had never been seen since. Actually.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably still not. There. And there was something else that was great there. The graffiti on the walls was pretty good. I think the earliest example that we saw was from 1955.
Oh wow,
that's pretty great.
Yeah, it was a Tupac. Logo though. That's even from 1955. Very popular even back then. Very cool. So then what was the text message that I got, which Cooper, my daughter, is thrilled to continue to watch, is you guys found a big hole and decided to throw a rock into it.
You have to.
And you'd expect that rock to hit the bottom. But the novel thing is, and maybe we'll post this up on the Instagram, is I think that rock is still falling out there somewhere. It's
true. It's true. Yeah, this. If you've ever seen the Lord of the Rings film where Pippin knocks the bucket into the well and it just falls and falls and falls and falls, it's very reminiscent of that. There's this mine, and go ahead, Linus.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you.
There's this mine,
immensely deep,
and it's a shaft, and it goes down into the hill, and at some point they've built a building kind of over the shaft, and the building is deteriorating, and the bathroom is right over the shaft, and the whole building is sagging as if it's going to fall into the shaft. But there's 3/4 of it that is open, and you can tell that it's just a massive hole down in the ground. You're like, how big is it? Well, my light doesn't go to the bottom, so how are we going to find out?
Remotely.
You're going to toss a small rock in there, and then you don't hear it, and you're like, maybe we should toss a bigger rock in so we can hear it better. And
then the rocks just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
It really is remarkable. I mean, that is, I'm no joke. Like, I don't think I heard it hit the bottom in the 2.5 minute long video.
There's just one giant boulder wedged in the opening.
We kind of timed it and talked to some people that were familiar with the area, and they estimated between 400 and 500 feet deep this hole, and so you can just imagine like a 10-foot diameter hole that's 500 feet deep. It's kind of scary. Like it'll just swallow you up. You'll never get out of there. There's not like you don't have a piece of rope big enough to reach the bottom. Like
no, that's it. You're gonna die in there. Which apparently somebody died in there. We don't know if they died in there.
We don't know this, but there's the local legend that says that there is a body at the bottom, but we didn't know that at the time. But supposedly
at the time you were crushing those remains with big rocks. Whoops!
I think it's more of a story. There's only one rock.
That guy was just about to get out, and then darn it! After all these years, he'd finally figured out a way. Only to be crushed by a rock.
It's kind of a neat place. That spot has some buildings as well, and it's actually pretty close to the cabin that we found. But it has a gate across the entryway, a pretty substantial gate, and it's kind of a neat story about what happened to that gate. I think we were talking about that too, and it's a bunch of these really large pipes. I'd say 4 to 6 inch diameter.
Wow.
And what did we say? 20 of them across the road, and they're vertically mounted in this channel that's got to be, I don't know, a foot wide and 10 inches deep, and they all slide into this channel. And then there's like a chrome-plated rod. It must be a hydraulic ram rod off of some kind of hydraulic cylinder, and that slid in through the bottom and locked, and it holds them all in place. And the legend again has it, as we discussed earlier, that the road was a public road, but the guy operating the mine decided to gate it. And some other person that was familiar with the area and enjoyed going on that road decided to torch that gate. So he came along with his torch and cut a path through the gate and threw all of the pipes into the ravine nearby, and they're all still laid down there.
And he cut it the exact width of his vehicle,
which is a special small vehicle. It's not a Land Rover.
I see.
And I guess the continuance of that legend is that the mine operator was so unhappy that he sort of gave up mining,
threw all the relics,
threw all of his equipment down that hole on top of the body.
On top of the body.
So if you ever want to go down a hole and look for a body, that's the one.
A little spelunking to body retrieve. There's also some old mining shit down there, and a few rocks for sure. At the very least, there's
at least one.
At least one big rock down there. Well, I think it's relatively safe because it is partially covered with some rusty old expanded metal. So I'm sure, no problem at all.
As long as nobody throws a rock down while you're down there, you'll be okay.
Yeah, you'll be all right. You'll be fine. Yeah. So if you're going to go, make sure you bring at least 500 feet of cable. If you're gonna attempt an entry into the big giant hole. Well, that's cool. What else was remarkable as a little wrap up for the whole trip? What was your guys' favorite thing? What was the favorite thing you saw while you were out there besides all the donkeys?
Well, definitely that cabin that we found. Looking for stuff in the desert is really great, and you usually find something, but to find something so well preserved is really rare. People love souvenirs. They love to take things. They love to shoot things. They love to tear things down and deface them and vandalize. Any cabin that is accessible by the general public in a brodozer or a Jeep thing is going to be damaged. People love to blow stuff up. They bring dynamite. They bring M80s. They bring big guns. Everything in the desert gets trashed. And this was a really special, rare example of something that's almost untouched. And
that's super cool.
That was definitely the highlight for me.
And you guys blew it up on the way out, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. So you'll never see it.
Yeah.
We actually packed out everything that was cool there with us, so it's empty.
Yeah, just emptied it out and threw it down the hole, coincidentally, in spite. Yeah.
I would add that, something to that. We visited another cabin, which is not too far away, and that cabin had a container in it, and in that container it had a lot of documents about that people had written about that space, claim documents, these sorts of things, and people that had visited and left notes about it. And, I visited here for a couple of days. I swept, I fixed the roof, I did this, I did that. And that particular one had fallen into pretty significant disrepair. And one of the entries that I read was kind of sad. It was like, this place is so special, it continues to get to deteriorate, and people don't keep it up or don't clean it, and it's falling apart, and people are taking things and that sort of thing. In one place we visited, they had actually taken the wood stove out of the cabin, which is
big, beautiful
deal.
Wood stove. Yeah.
It's a big deal. So that's depressing. And to see this cabin, and I would say the final cabin that we visited in such good repair was definitely heartwarming, to see that people are being more respectful and taking care of these places that are so neat and have lasted so long.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look after that stuff so that future Linuses can go and be inspired to collect weird old things. It's important.
I guess we didn't have a lot of Land Rover content in this episode necessarily.
Well, Linus, that's a hallmark of a Linus episode. But one thing that we did discuss before is Linus, you actually have a contribution to everybody's second favorite segment, Land Rovers in the movies, Land Rover film that you are a big fan of. One that Ike and I had never heard of, to say the very least. We'd never heard of it, and to the best of our knowledge, it's only available on YouTube, which I think that still counts. So, Linus, what is this week's Land Rovers in the movies?
These are two 109s that are in the movie Dog Soldiers from 2002, and I saw this movie probably nearly when it came out, and I've only seen it one time, and I recall that it had a Land Rover, and I recall only one scene in the whole film, which is when a man is hurt by this thing's about werewolves. There's no way around it. Let's just come out with it. This is a werewolf movie.
Yes.
So a werewolf attacks a man, and his guts are all hanging out, and he's rolling around on the ground, and he's got his intestines in his hands, and he yells sausages because his intestines look like sausages, and he's dying.
As he's dying.
That's all I remember about the movie, and I just, besides the fact that it had a Land Rover in it, and apparently it has two. I didn't remember that. It has 2 Land Rovers in it. So
according to the Internet Movie Car Database, it does say there's a Series 3 109 and a Series 2 109, both in the film.
I'm looking at it now, and it looks like it looks like it might have a homemade full top on this 109 3-door. Mm-hmm. And it's got a bull bar on it.
And it's full of werewolves.
And it's full of werewolves and a few donkeys, coincidentally.
Just donkeys. Let's make up were-donkeys.
Actually, I'm gonna say this episode has to be a twofer. There's another film, also a horror movie, called Black Sheep, and it's not the one with David Spade in it.
No.
It is a New Zealand film about were-sheep. And I have the poster on my office wall. Yep. And it's all these farmers that live in New Zealand, and the sheep start to turn.
Start to kill them.
And they get in their Land Rover to escape, which is an 88 pickup truck.
Yep.
And the movie poster is great. They're all packed into the Land Rover pickup truck, and there's a sheep on the roof, and it's howling at the moon.
Yeah, it is fantastic. There is some of the best sheep puppetry. It feels reminiscent of, and I don't know if there's any Land Rovers in it, but one of my favorite films, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which is it feels very much in the same vein of a bit of a tongue-in-cheek horror movie.
There's a lot of Land Rover content in Black Sheep, though.
Yeah. It's that's a great movie. I'm a big fan of that show. All right. Well, with that, we have come to the natural conclusion of this episode. Linus, it is a pleasure, as always, to have you on to avoid talking about Land Rovers. Ike, it is a good time, as always. If you do happen to find yourself on YouTube looking for the 2002 film Dog Soldiers, maybe head over to our YouTube channel, and you can go back to those summer breakdown episodes and see what Linus looks like, and get a really strong mental picture in your head for that.
Next episode, we're gonna talk about the 3 Series 2A Land Rovers that were campaigned in the classic Dakar Rally. So
that's right. So let's looking forward to next episode, where if you haven't had a chance to look at the Dakar Classic and the Land Rover that's being used, Land Rovers that are being used there, super cool, man. They're having lots of fun. And again, we apologize. We have unfortunately run out of time to have Ike review Nando's on this episode, but we will absolutely be making time for that in the future. So we apologize again to the fine people at Nando's.
Sorry I talked so much.
And that is how it goes. So Linus, thanks again. Ike, we'll see you next week.
All right, looking forward to it.